This is Ask Congress, a political portico that reaches into the Congresses and parliaments throughout the world. Our objective is to bring you closer to the members of Congress, those here in the United States, as well as those throughout the entire world. It's an opportunity for you, too, to sound off to your congressman because it's interactive today. I'm very happy to welcome on Ask Congress today, Congressman Walter Jones from the 3rd District, North Carolina.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on your show. I think I've maybe been on twice, and this is my second time, and it's an honor to be with you as yourself, a former member of Congress, and many things you've done since you were in Congress and been very successful. So I'm honored to be on your show.
Thank you so much. Well, I served with your father.
That's what I understand. And my father served here for 26 years. He, like myself, from Eastern North Carolina. And he was a Democrat. I'm a Republican. But my father did serve for 26 years, and he was a great teacher for me. He used to tell me, Mr. Wolff, and you've heard it many, many times, that you vote your conscience, your constituency, and your party third. And I do that, but it gets me in trouble. It gets me in trouble.
You've demonstrated that. But you were a Democrat before you were a Republican,
right? I changed party affiliations in 1993. I am very strong in my faith. I am a believer that the baby is a gift from God. I believe the words in the Bible that man marries woman. And at that time, I saw the Democratic Party going too far to the left, and the Republican Party advocated the social values that I believe in. And they also, but I've gone away from this, to believing in less spending and less government. So that's not the strong suit of the Republican Party that it was when I joined in 1993.
How do you look at the Republican Party today?
Mr. Wolff, if I could change one thing about Washington, it's the influence of money. Both parties, ever since Citizens United, which I think was a horrible decision, I see more and more of the policy decisions getting to the floor of the House for a debate and a vote that are influenced more about money than the people. And Congress should be the servant of the people. And yet it's gone away from that. And I would like to see sometime, probably I'll be gone, but I would like to see some voluntary system of public financing.
It's more partisan than when I was here.
Absolutely, no question about it.
Is there any chance that there be more in the way of cooperation?
I'm not very optimistic, and the reason for it, I go back to a statement I just made. I see the influence of money directing policy in the House, and the policy should be directed by the will of the people. And until you change the influence of money, I don't know how you change the policy.
Well, one thing you've been very much interested in is our service people. I know that you have been, and protecting their interests. It seems that there's almost a cavalier attitude directed toward the service people. And it's not only those that are serving, but their families as well.
Well, you know, for me, again, you mentioned my father who you served with. He always had a great staff. And I have always felt that the privilege to serve the people in my district, which is the 3rd District of North Carolina, I am their servant. And my staff is their servant. And we're here to try to make their life better. If they call upon us for, Social Security, veterans issues, so many issues that a congressional office might be called for assistance. But to me, taking care of the people back in the district is the most important responsibility I have.
But the other part of it, as you say, taking care of the people in your district, so many families are torn apart by what has been going on of recent years. And you have gotten involved in the idea of a new piece of legislation on the question of Afghanistan.
Right. I have been very frustrated. I have Camp Lejeune Marine Base in my district, and I talked to a lot of the Marines. Many have been over to Afghanistan 4 or 5, 6 times. They don't think anything's going to change. We've already spent over $800 billion in Afghanistan. We've had over 2,000 Americans killed, 20,000 wounded, and we've been there 16 years. I don't know what we can accomplish. History has proven that Afghanistan will never become a nation. The strength of Afghanistan is they have tribes. They don't have a central government at all, even today. So after 16 years and that many young Americans killed and wounded, I don't know what we're trying to accomplish. So I have introduced a bill. I've been joined by John Garamendi from California, a wonderful human being, and we got right now 3 or 4 Democrats and 3 or 4 Republicans. We just put the bill in a week ago. What the bill will do is say that Congress should have a debate on the future of Afghanistan. That debate would say either that the bill says that if it should become law, meaning signed by the president, then there would be a year that we would start bringing back our troops and our assets. There would be waivers in there that if the president says, no, we need to stay longer or we need to have a few more troops here or there, but we do have a protection of a waiver, but nothing's going to change there. The Russians are being encouraged by the former president, Hamid Karzai, to come back to Afghanistan. We just need to start rebuilding America and stop trying to rebuild these other countries. I do believe in fighting ISIL. I have no problem with that. I'm all for that. But in Afghanistan, I've been on the floor many times talking about the fact that the Department of Defense spent $6 million to buy 9 goats. 9 goats for $6 million. The goats are from Italy. They have a certain texture to their fur. Bring them down to north to Afghanistan to start a farm, and they can't even find the goats now. John Sopko said, I don't know where they are. In addition to that, I wrote Ash Carter, who's now retired as the Secretary of Defense. An article was written where they have been paying over 200,000 Afghan soldiers who they can't find, and they call them ghosts. And so how much more can the American people afford to spend in a country that we're not going to change, and our young men and women still from time to time get killed or from time to time have a leg blown off or an arm?
Well, taking part of devil's advocate for a moment, if you pull out of there, what is the course from that point?
Well, I think it's up to the Afghan people. I mean, the Afghan people can shift for themselves. We can't even secure our borders here in America. How are we going to worry about a country that's 10,000 miles away? It just doesn't make any sense. I'm like Ron Paul. My whole foreign policy belief is this. If you're attacked, you go after the attacker. But for trying to build democracies around the world, it's just not going to happen.
It's not going to turn the tribal situation back in any way. And we can't build them into our own image.
Mr. Wolff, we cannot, and I think, again, the American people and our men and women in uniform deserve to know that we appreciate them. We need a strong military, but we've got to be much smarter in our foreign policy, in my opinion.
How long do you think it would take to get us out of there?
Well, if this bill would pass, it would say within a year after it's signed into law by the president that we would start the process of bringing our troops home. Just recently in the paper it said that Mr. Graham, Senator Graham and Senator McCain want to send 8,000 more troops over there. I mean, we don't even have these debates on the floor anymore. You did when you were in Congress, but we don't now.
I'm going to have to cut away from you for a moment while our local stations kick in, and then we'll be back again to you.
Thank you.
We've been talking to Congressman Walter Jones, the 3rd District of North Carolina. You pardon my hoarse voice today.
Oh, that's fine.
But we've been talking about the question of Afghanistan and the costs that are involved in that. And that gets us to another part. How do we do all these things that have been forecast? Infrastructure, many of the things that we want to do within our own budget. Where do we stand today? The Republicans used to have a point of the fact that we have a balanced budget.
Mr. Wolff, I don't know anymore. I tell people back in the district that our debt now, not talking about the deficit, but the debt is well over $19 trillion. So those who might be watching this show or listening, when Bill Clinton left office, I was here in Congress at that time, the debt was $5.6 trillion in 2000. Here we are 17 years later, and it's well over $19.8 trillion. America cannot continue to go down this road and not pay its bills without some type of economic collapse. That again is why I mentioned the waste of life and money in Afghanistan. We need to get smart about how we're going to spend our money and rebuild our own country. And yet there are those in Washington in both parties that want to spend, and it seems like no one ever wants to have a pause to rethink the policy. Once you have a policy, you just keep spending money and funding it. You don't. That's why, again, this bill that Mr. Gary Mendy and I have put in says after 16 years, we need to debate our future involvement of Afghanistan. I don't know if I can get the leadership to get the bill to the floor, but we're going to try.
You couldn't run a business that we're running government.
No, you cannot. And all the growing debt is going to strangle programs in America. Programs for senior citizens, for veterans, for children, for the disabled. It's just so many programs are going to be impacted by the growing debt. And then we got in April of this year, the latter part of April, we're supposed to raise the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling, when you raise it, allows the administration to borrow more money to spend. And at some point in time, in my humble opinion, there's going to be a collapse.
Do you think they're going to raise the debt ceiling?
It's going to be an interesting debate. I will be one of those that will not vote to raise the debt ceiling because I know we're not going to pay for it. I am for tax relief as long as you pay for it. I'm for the infrastructure bill as long as you pay for it. But that's what we do up here in Washington. We just pass these bills that are not paid for, waiting for the next generation to pay for it.
But too, you're going to have to cut social programs if you are today.
Well, that's the whole key. I thought that Mr. Trump said something during the campaign that he would not spend any more money than we bring in tax revenues. Well, that seems to be going by the wayside because he's talking about an infrastructure bill of trillions of dollars. He's talking about a wall, another trillions of dollars. And he's talking about tax cuts, another trillions of dollars. And maybe he will in time, given the benefit of the doubt. But right now, he's not telling us how we're going to pay for it.
How can we talk about a wall when we're talking about the question of social areas, of the aging, health care, and things of that sort?
Mr. Wolff, I think that you can't do it. You can certainly talk about it, but if you don't start trying to figure out, and we owe that to the next generation, we need to let the next generation know that we have a responsibility when it comes to fiscal matters, that we must be more prudent with how we spend the taxpayers' money. And that, like I talked about in the first segment, buying goats. 9 goats for $6 million is crazy. I talked about paying the ghost soldiers, meaning the 200,000 Afghans that don't even exist. We paid over several billions of dollars to soldiers that don't exist. I mean, at some point in time, somebody's got to get a handle on this situation, or these other countries, including China, who are buying our debt, are going to say, pay up now. And then we're going to be in trouble.
Tell me, with this whole question of service to the nation, that it's a privilege more than anything else for you to serve in the country.
Well,
what is your opinion on getting more people involved in the question of military service, compulsory military service?
Well, I think this kind of ties into talking about all these foreign involvements that we get involved in that George Washington won this country about. I think that Charlie Rangel, who you know well, is a good friend of mine, who used to serve in the Congress. He always felt that we needed a draft, and for two reasons. One, to make sure that we had a quick supply of young men and women to go in the military if we were in a real international fight, so to speak. But also he felt that if you have the draft, then more moms and dads who don't want their children to be drafted are going to be more oriented to policies like Afghanistan, like Syria and these other countries. And I think he's probably right. Too easy. I have Camp Lejeune Marine Base in my district, and too many times it's just human nature that you say, well, they have a voluntary Army and Marine Corps and Navy and Air Force. You know, people don't think about it as if it was my son or daughter who might get called up to go to Afghanistan or to Syria. So I think I miss Charlie Rangel. He's retired now, as you know, but he and I got along very well. I'm a Republican, he was a Democrat, but we got along very well, and we did talk about this issue of getting the American people involved, and felt that one of those ways to get the American people involved is to institute the draft.
That has been popular and unpopular even in the days that I was here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in the Vietnam War, it wasn't until we made some steps toward that that we ended that war.
Well, to me, I just think, and you know how many protests they had during the Vietnam War, and I remember them too, that the people got so involved they felt like the policy had no end to it. And that's one reason that I've done this bill, because I looked at the Vietnam War and read some information about that time. The Senate and the House also cut the money out when Nixon became the president. You might have been here at the time.
Joe Adamo was chairman of the Appropriations Subcommittee that cut that out.
Well, that got the attention because that
right.
started getting the troops home.
Tell me, the president has said that we must do something with our military today and that we don't have the readiness that we had before. Is that true? You're a member of the
Well, I think it's true about the readiness. That's why I very outspoken again about taking the money we're spending in these foreign countries and not talking about fighting ISIL. We got to fight ISIL. We got to eliminate ISIL. But the point I'm trying to make is that we keep spending all this money out here when we need to rebuild the military. And we got pilots that are not getting enough hours. I know you were a pilot prior to World War II, and the fact is that we've got a lot of shortcomings in our military that we need to invest in. So it's going to be an interesting year.
We have a shortage of pilots today, don't we?
Shortage, and the time that many of the pilots who get through pilot school in the military will not get much time in the air.
Well, I want to thank you very much for appearing here, taking time out from an extraordinary schedule that you must be keeping.
Well, Mr. Wolff, thank you. It is, I've been here 22 years, and this has been a very interesting 3 months of a new administration and a new Congress. It's kind of like the world's upside down right now.
Again, my thanks to you, Walter Jones, for appearing here. And I know if our audience would like to send a question to you, you'd be very happy to answer them.
No, it certainly would. They can go on call our office or go on the internet and communicate with us, and we'd be delighted to get back with them.
Again, our thanks, and hope you'll come back again
Look forward
in the
to
near
it.
future.
Thank you so much. Thank you.